KVC, it's Mazzy. Let me move you in here. Come closer, come closer, come closer, come closer. So, the big shift. Do you know about the big shift? If you're a record collector, you need to know about the big shift. And if you don't, I think we need to get you out of amateur status and teach you about the big shift. The big shift is when it's more problematic when you have a larger collection. However, you can have a small collection of 50 records and 100 records, and you buy that Kallax IKEA cube shelf, or you have an old armoire, or you have a little couple bricks and plywood that you put your records in, but eventually you run out of room. Eventually you start categorizing your records. Eventually you move things around. You have to kind of shift the record collection around. You need to do the big shift. The big shift, registered trademark, copyright. I didn't invent this. This goes back before my time. Because I remember in the 70s, when I lived with my parents, even before that, late 60s, there was a time where you'd have my Magnavox fold-down record changer with the speakers that pivoted out, and you pull the top down, and the turntable would fold down, and you'd flip the speakers out, and it would be on a stand with a little, almost like a dish rack, and you'd have your records there, and you'd go shopping, and you'd kind of sneak records home. Not that you stole them or anything, but you didn't want your parents to know that you're wasting all your money on records. No, dang! Is that another record? Actually, my parents were really cool about that, but of course, they didn't see that all of a sudden your records are like this, and then 6 months later they're like this, and then on and on and on. Well, you've seen my record room mostly when I do my whack-a-moles, but we've done a few other vinyl community editions here, videos. Actually, you're playing Grant Green in the background. Blue Note Records, Grant Green. I Want to Hold Your Hand is on this, the Beatles song. But the big shift, I recently redid my records, and all these right here, let me just give you a little sense there. That's most of my jazz collection. So not all of it, but it's a lot of it. I have some upstairs. I have my Music Matters and all my new tone poets. Some new things are upstairs, but they're gonna come here. I'm moving some books around. I'm doing the big shift. The big shift. Mazzy's big shift. You all have you call it what you want, but it's the big shift, registered trademark. So, I'm not gonna show you me doing the big shift because it's too complicated. I got another shelf. I'm going to put books in my office around the other wall so I can have a whole jazz section up here. So the jazz that used to be down the bottom, I loosened that up for more rock and soul and everything else, country, everything else. And I have here. So I think just before I do the big shift, I'm just going to pull a couple and show you. One of my favorite guitar players that's not Ry Cooder is Django Reinhardt. I love this. This is a cool RCA collection from the 1930s. Gypsy guitar player, missing, had some issues with his hands. Played with Stefan Grappelli in the Hot Club of France in the late 30s and 40s. Great music. I'm not going to show any Blue Note or any of that kind of stuff. I think the VC is flooded with Blue Note crap. Blue Note, Impulse, give me a break. Max Roach, GNP, another great cover. This is Max Roach with Clifford Brown. In Concert, Grand Prix. Not the car Grand Prix. This is another Max Roach album. This is a Riverside reissue from the late 80s, so it's still analog. It's around the time CDs were coming out, and Original Jazz Classics was a series that Fantasy, who owned these labels, were putting out on vinyl. Kind of the last hurrah before the big CD craze. Got a lot of Django, so a lot of Django. Charlie Parker, I'm a big Charlie Parker fan. Charlie Parker is next year celebrating his 100th birthday. Well, he's not celebrating it. We are celebrating Charlie Parker's 100th birthday, and a lot of my favorite jazz sax players are from the 40s into the 50s, 30s, 40s, 50s. I don't see that a lot here on the VC. It's always, the usual suspects. So Charlie Parker, Ben Webster, Coleman Hawkins, all those kind of artists are amongst my very favorite. Live at the Carnegie Hall, Apollo and Birdland, these are 70s issues that Columbia put out. If you find these, they're great records. A little bit of big band, but also the small groups too, as well. Night in Tunisia, song that's been recorded by so many. But anything with Bird is Charlie Parker's nickname. That's I Want to Hold Your Hand, if you can believe it. Machito, Charlie Parker, the whole, Cuban-influenced Afro-Cuban jazz thing was prevalent at the time, but this stuff's great. Machito and his orchestra with Charlie Parker. Bird on Verve. Excuse me. Got a bird caught in my throat. Now, these are records I got back in the day when I worked at the record factory, record stores. The good and bad of these, unfortunately, these two copies on Verve are 70s issues, excuse me, that are electronically reprocessed to simulate stereo. Bad move. That was a thing that record companies dude. Record companies dude it back then. But anyway, great music. So I have a lot of this stuff on CD. In fact, I have a really large, extensive collection of jazz on compact disc. Those are those little silver things that are kind of outdated now. Okay, Monk in person. Underground Monk, what a great cover. This is when he was on Columbia, signed over to Columbia. Very conceptual in a way. Solo Monk and his piano playing, his solo Monk stuff is really great. I mean, anything with Monk, there's so many different directions you could go with Thelonious Monk. Alone in San Francisco, Mazzy's got to get his San Francisco plug in every time. That city by the bay where I left my heart when I was born there, way back in the 50s. Now, everyone likes to make fun of Herbie Mann's chest hair. You know Herbie Mann, the flautist? I'm just going to show this because London Underground, great photograph. I love that. Of course, it's a hat shot. You know how I like hat shots. But this is with Albert Lee McTaylor, Ainsley Dunbar, Robbie McIntosh, Ian McDonald, and Stephen Grappelli. Kind of a fusion thing, when all these artists, this is 1974, were jumping on the rock and roll fusion jazz bandwagon. It's an interesting record. Not great, not a purist, but it's still fun to have, and it's in shrink, as they say. But these Atlantic records, I'm going to show these, just a little Herbie Mann thing right now, just because I think these covers are stupendous. Look at these. Well, first of all, this is a good cover, Impressions of Middle East. A very ethnic-centric jazz fusion, Eastern sounds, which I'm a big fan of. I like a lot of that late 60s, early 70s jazz where they fuse everything from Africa to India, Pakistan, Middle East kind of music. Pretty cool stuff. Herbie Mann, My Kind of Groove. I think he must have been some groovy dude with the ladies back then, don't you think? You know? Hey baby, I play the flute. I play the flute. Do you want me to see me scale? Modern art, come on. The inspiration I feel, Herbie Mann. Oh, this is kind of psychedelic, right? Arranged and conducted by Oliver Nelson. Big band stuff. In fact, there's 2 Lennon-McCartney songs. They do Yesterday and The Night Before. Night Before is an odd choice for a jazz artist to do. You know, that was in the movie Help, but kind of cool stuff. Again, another great one, live at the Whiskey A Go-Go. The Whiskey, Sunset on the Strip, LA. And the beat goes on. The beat goes on. The beat goes on. Love that song. You know that. You know what Mazzy likes. Herbie Mann live at the Village Gate. Anyway, just thought I'd show you a few of those because... Let's see what else I got here. Going back again, because we don't see a lot, but old stuff. Fats Waller, more the, you know, great piano player. This stuff's recorded in the late 20s. Fats Waller, Ain't Misbehavin'. Again, do I need to show another friggin' John Coltrane record? This is actually a good series. If you ever see these labels, they're French albums from the 70s, and most of them are pretty good. And there's a whole slew of different artists that they put out in this kind of series. And this was a CBS, I don't say CBS offshoot, it was CBS, but CBS France. Some nice collections. The RCA Bluebird stuff, they're really old. This is the 20s, I believe. Oh, 30s, I'm sorry. Yeah, most of the 30s. Great Bluebird collection. Bluebird was a label. Electronically recorded. Part of the RCA. Victor. Same here. Now these are the late 20s. This is the one I was thinking of, late 20s. But the small group, great stuff. Anyway, I like that kind of. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, a record everyone should have in their collection. Little Girl Blue, Nina Simone. Out of any Nina Simone record, you have to get this record. It's a perfect record. This is actually Analog Productions edition. If you can find this, get it. It's a perfect record. Again, one Nina Simone record. This is the one to get. This is actually cool. Cool Picks. I don't even know what the source on this is, but it's some great stuff. It's some of her Cool Picks singles label she worked on. More poppy. I know it's in the jazz section. Now, this is an unusual record just because it's how I was introduced to Nina Simone. This came out in 71 or 2, I believe. 71. And she does an amazing version of Here Comes the Sun and an Ooh Ooh Child. Remember I showed that on another video, Ooh Ooh Child on here. This is more of a pop album, but it's really good. Great production, great small group, an amazing version of Mr. Bojangles. So again, this is not a, this is RCA? Yeah, RCA Dynaflex. This is not a jazz album, but it's a great Nina Simone album. So I'd say that first one I showed you, Little Girl, and this one, this is more if you just want a really great 70s, early 70s singer-songwriter sounding like record, but with Nina Simone's amazing voice. Again, Mr. Bojangles and Here Comes the Sun. Amazing renditions of that. George, you know George Shearing, blind piano player, the 60s, did a lot of sappy standards and things. Well, you may not know this, but this has a Beatle connection. In fact, I should just do a contest. Nah, it won't work. Anyway, the reason I bought this record, if you ever have seen the Beatles film A Hard Day's Night, well, when they're in the hotel room, when all the mail comes in and they kind of sneak out to go to the clubs in A Hard Day's Night, well, when you first cut to the hotel scene, you see him taking, this is the record they take out, you see the cover and put on the turntable. You don't see them put it on the turntable, but you see this cover in A Hard Day's Night. So I think it's kind of cool. I wonder who picked that, if that was the director or one of the Beatles or Brian Epstein or whoever, but George Shearing, piano player, great stuff. Not great stuff, but interesting, fun stuff. I think I'm going to end this just because this is not really a jazz thing. Well, it is jazz. Jazz vocals, an album that we used to sell a lot in the record store in the 70s, and we couldn't keep this record in. 1976 on Stash Records. Reefer Songs. It's basically a comp of all these songs about smoking pot, marijuana, reefer. Songs like Reefer Man, The Man from Harlem, Here Comes the Man with the Jive, You're the Viper, Texas Tea Party, Light Up, Jack I'm Mellow, Sweet Marijuana Brown, Viper Man, Weed Smoker's Dream, The G-Man Got the T-Man, All the Jive is Gone, The Stuff is Here, Wacky Dust, Who Put the Benzene in Mrs. Murphy's Ovaltine. Now that's a classic song. And Jerry the Junker. Great, great album. Find this album, just buy it. It's a fun comp. Maybe there's a CD version, I don't know. But I'm going to end with Reefer Songs. And I'm going to get into The Big Shift today. The Big Shift is a wary affair. It's something that happens every once in a while, and you all are going to have to deal with it. So, Mazzy says, be patient, breathe, drink a lot of liquids, and when you do the big shift, enjoy it, and then wash your hands 3 times, 6 times after. Mazzy loves you. Thanks, everyone.